All right, everybody. This is 6.1 notes, our study of trigonometry for this semester. Again, this will all be new stuff, so make sure that you are taking the time to learn all this information. There are things you'll be quizzed on so far. So as I go along, I'll make sure that you listen carefully. You will need to know definitions, so make sure that you know those and may quiz you on you, just never know. All right, so number one, an angle. So an angle is a measure of rotation. You can have two different ways. First, you can go positive, and this is when we go counterclock. Positive rotates counterclockwise. So your direction of your arrow is going up. And I'll show you what that means in just a second. And then your second way is negative, which rotates clockwise. And then rotates down. So we'll show that just a second. Okay, so it's a measure of the rotation. All right, number two, the initial side. Initial side is the beginning. It's the stationary side. In other words, it doesn't move. And when we do this, we are talking about the x. When we start this every time, it's going to be on the positive x-axis. Okay? Terminal side. Now this is the side that's rotating. Okay. So is the ending. And is the rotating side. That's where you end, but this is where what rotates around the axis above there. Standard position. Okay. Our initial side. And again, this is the positive axis. Okay, so let's do just a few more definitions and we'll go up there and work with the graph up there. Vertex, that's just your origin. Negative angles. Okay. Negative angles are their terminal side rotates clockwise. So the terminal side will rotate clockwise. So I'm going to go up here. I'm going to use this graph and kind of talk about this information down here. So let me scoot this down a little bit. Okay, so when we talk about this further, we're going to talk about the positives. It's going to be our positive angle, the one I'm going to do on the right. So here, let's just say I want to graph example on a graph. Let's say let's do 90 degrees. Doesn't matter which one we start with. Okay. So when we talk about 90 degrees, so where I start. Okay, so this is my starting on this x positive axis. That's what they're talking about when it talks about that. Okay, you're going to draw an arrow. Do not go all the way to the end because, I mean, you can, but again, you're going to have to show me what that is. You have to draw that arrow. And if I want to go to 90 degrees, that should be up here if this makes this right angle. So it rotates counterclockwise and ends right here. So talking about this terminal angle. So here's our initial side. Sorry, we accidentally spelled it wrong. Initial side of the angle. And this is your terminal side. Another thing we need to label, sorry, so we always want to label our graph, and you'll need to do this. So this is where we start right here at the x-axis is 0 degrees and 360. And make sure your degree sign looks like little degree signs. 90 degrees, 180 degrees, and 270 degrees. And these little angles are not in the quadrants, they're actually on the axis, okay? I call them quadrantal angles. I think throughout this book we'll call them axis angles, but just so you know both when you hear them both ways. Okay, so right here is your vertex. So kind of give context, sorry, to our definitions, pictures. Okay, so again, you see how it rotates. You see the rotation, this little angle here. I show that it's rotating clockwise, counterclockwise in this direction, okay? All right, so let's say I want you to graph, let's do, for example, 210 degrees. Well, it still starts here on the initial side, right over all this blue. There's still my initial angle. I'm still going to go around, and 210 degrees is between 180 and 270. So it's going to wind up here a little bit past 180 degrees. And so we'll go a little bit more. And then we'll draw our angle here. There's our terminal side. And then there's the angle showing the direction that it's going. It's rotating that way. Okay. All right. So the next one I want to do is let's do a negative angle. I want you to think of, I'm going to label the graph first, like as we always should. So when we label this graph, it's going to go 0 degrees still and 360. But since we're going clockwise, since we're going clockwise, down here is negative 90 degrees, negative 180 degrees, negative 270 degrees. Okay, you will have to label your graphs depending on which one you're graphing and so forth, so you know which way it's going. If you're doing both the same thing, you're going to label it with both on there. So if I said I want an angle that's negative 180 degrees, my initial side still starts on this positive x-axis, and that's what that position sign we talk initial side is on the positive axis, and when we're starting this the graph on this one, and we're going to go to negative 180, which goes all the way around to right here. So this is my terminal side. Okay, going in that direction. If I now let's do another example of negative. Let's do negative 240. Okay. So I'm going to go again, starting here on this side here on the x-axis, positive. Going to go around to negative 240 between 180 and 270. So be somewhat more accurate with your graphs. You may not know exactly where they are, as in which way it is specifically in here, but make sure that when you do draw these, sometimes again it's easier to draw where your angle is. So that's about 60 degrees. So let's say it's a little bit more up this way. Okay, and then this is the way it's coming. It's coming around here, going around there, and ending there. So notice the rotation of the angle where the arrow is going. That's your direction arrow, okay? Okay. Sometimes we write which one is which. So the blue is negative 180, and this green one's a negative 240. We're going to start with coterminal angles. Okay, these are angles that share the same terminal and initial sides, but have different measures. Okay, so for example, I'm going to draw myself a little grid here. Okay, so I just drew this coordinate plane, this coordinate grid, and then I drew 360. I'm going to put my okay, so let's just say I want the angle is 270 degrees, okay? So 270 degrees, like I did earlier, starts here and goes all the way around to here, okay? Well, the coterminal angle for that is the other direction. Well, the other direction means I need to label these as, this is negative 360 now, and this is negative 90, negative 180, and then negative 270. Well, the coterminal angle for this one would be going from here, this other direction. Oops, sorry, let me finish my terminal side here. Is going from here, again, and coming in this direction and landing there. And that's a negative 90. So negative 90 and 270 are coterminal. Okay, so what, we'll do some more then, but they share both the same sides. Okay, now when we go and talk about reference angles, it's a little bit different. Okay, it's the difference between the given angle and the closest, very important, x-axis. Okay, we'll talk about that in a second. Literally, the x-axis is the x-axis in all this. Okay, so I'm going to draw two different ways to look at it. So I've drawn two coordinate planes here, excuse me. And my first example is going to be, I want you to find the reference angle of 130 degrees. Okay, first thing you do is draw it. I'm in a positive direction. So I'm going to do, so this is going to be labeled 0, 360, 90. Again, make sure your angles, degrees, look like degrees. Sometimes you start writing them and they get a little crazy. There it goes again. And then to 180. Something wrong with my pen. And then 270. Okay. Now I'm going to draw the angle where it goes. So it starts here. Here's the initial side. 130 is roughly here. Okay. So now I'm going in this direction. And that's 130 degrees. Now what I want to know is the reference angle. So I'm looking for the angle. It's the difference between the given angle that I have and the closest x-axis. So when I do this problem here, when I'm talking about the x-axis, I am talking about this here. This is my x-axis. Okay, we know that from basis from any other class we've had so far. So the closest x-axis for this graph, though, is going to be down here. So what you want to do is you want to take it and you want to go, excuse me. Okay, so I don't know why it keeps going pencil. From here to here is what I want. I want to know the difference between this. So I'm going to take 180 minus 130 degrees, which is 50 degrees. So this is my reference angle, 50 degrees. Okay, let's try another one. This time I want my example to be, let's just do 280 degrees. So again, I'm going to label my graph. I know that I'm going to be 280 degrees is in the fourth quadrant. So it's really starts here and it ends up roughly here. That's 280. So that's going all the way around this way. Now again, my x-axis is this whole thing here. But what's closest to the 280? Okay, this is 280 degrees. The closest x-axis is over here at this 360. So you're going to take 360 minus the 280 and get 80 degrees, which is your reference angle for 280. Okay, your reference angle will always be a positive angle between 0 and 90 degrees. It will be not greater than 90 degrees, not a negative number. So you'll see as we go through all these, okay, because you're always subtracting from a positive x-axis. So I want to go back up in here and I want to talk about one thing real quick when we talk about initial side, counterclockwise, and clockwise. Is the one thing I want to remind you is that what the quadrants are called and know what they are. So again, I'll just do it here. Okay, these are my 4 quadrants. This is quadrant 1, 2, 3, and quadrant 4. I use Roman numerals. Probably some of the notes you'll see in homework, you'll see 1, 2, 3, 4. But I use Roman numerals, and so that's what I'll be using. So page 2 for notes, and we're going to sketch examples in standard form. In standard form angles, and there are 4 requirements, 3 or 4 requirements, however you want to count them, that I expect when we sketch an angle. Number 1, label the axes with 0 to 0 degrees. I want you to label in degrees. So 0, 90, 180, 270, and 360. Positive and negatives when necessary. Number 2, show the initial side and terminal side. And number 3, direction arrow. I'll show you exactly what I mean. Okay, so let's look at number 1. Sketch each angle in standard position. So what I mean by labeling each axis, I'm going to label this as 0, 360 degrees, 200, sorry, not 200, 90 degrees, 180 degrees, and 270 degrees. Sorry, this should be degrees on here. I keep forgetting that. It is 0 degrees. So again, when you're labeling it, you're going to take it. So it depends on how you like to do this. I always start with my initial side here, drawing it. I draw the arrow here. Sometimes you can go all the way to the end you want. You really can. I know I said that earlier that you didn't have to, but know that you have to draw it in even though you're giving the axes. And so that's um, the thing that I was talking about, is to make sure that you do that. So sometimes going all the ends fine. And then 90 degrees is right here, then 100 is a little past it. So sometimes people draw the angle and then there's the direction that it's going. Okay. Sometimes people draw this directional part to where they want it and then draw the angle. I think it just depends on what you like to do. And that's what's expected. So let's try number 2. Number 2, we have, again, same thing, 0 degrees, 360 degrees, 90 degrees, 180 degrees, and 270 degrees. Again, I'm drawing 250, which is between 180 and 270. And the reason I have you draw the direction, I mean the axes with all the degrees on it, it helps you to really understand where the graph is quickly. So again, draw the initial side, which is here. Change it to a different color. 250 is roughly not too far off from 270. So I'm going to draw it. So this is what I'm saying. It's like some people like to draw the angle like that, the direction arrow, and then draw it. So this is 250 degrees. Okay. This one here was 100 degrees. You don't have to show that, but it's sometimes habit. Sometimes you see me, sometimes you don't. Okay, let's try this next one. This one's, again, label. And just as we're doing this, remember that these are in degrees. And so even though it's a 0, it's still 0 degrees. It's a type of measurement. So make sure that you're labeling it such. Okay, so 370. If I think about what's happening here, here's my initial side. Now what I'm doing is I know that if I go so here I start here, go all the way around, that's 360 degrees, but I need a little bit more. So this is like saying 370 minus 360, where I wind up. I have 10 degrees more to go. So I'm going to wind up in this first quadrant again, where I started, but again right there. And so if I show that my direction arrow, I went all the way around. I went all the way around and wound one time and then wound up with a little bit over. Okay. So I'm going to do one of these in the middle here, and then I'm going to have you do them on your own, and I'll come back. So let's try the negative 100. So we are going to label our degrees with 0. Instead of positive, we're going to do negative. We don't need the positive now. Remember, 90 is, we're going clockwise, so everything is negative going the other way. Okay, so my initial side still starts here. It still starts with a positive. It doesn't change because it's a negative number. It just goes in a different direction. So it still starts here. And then I'm going to 100 degrees, which is really roughly right here, a little bit past the negative 90. So again, draw my angle, direction, draw these terminal side, initial side, and this is negative 100 degrees. Okay, so I'm going to do a pause camera. You're going to do the next two and see how you do. Okay, so here's the two graphs that I did. Again, counterclockwise, negative 30. I've labeled all of my axes here, and then I drew the angle with the direction here. This one over here for number 7 is negative 400 degrees. So roughly, it's approximately, I would say, negative 40 degrees is what I would say, because that's where it's going to wound up, and it's going to wind up in the fourth quadrant. Okay, and all the way around though is 400 degrees. The answer is not, you wouldn't label this graph as negative 40, you would label it as 400 degrees negative. Okay, so let's go on to which quadrant each of these lies in. So we did that earlier, what quadrant? So 80 degrees is actually in quadrant 1. Oh, I am in highlighter. 150 degrees in quadrant 2. 460 degrees. So again, if you're not too sure, draw it. So here's 360 degrees, and we're going counterclockwise, right? 300, there's 360, and then we go to 460, that's like 100 more. So we wind up in quadrant 2 again, okay? In number 10, kind of like showed what we did, so we wound up in actually in quadrant 4 here, because we're going going clockwise. We wind up in this quadrant. Negative 200 degrees, again, now we know that's at. So if you look above here, between 90 and negative 180 is there, so it has to be in quadrant 2. And the quadrants don't change because it's positive or negative, the quadrants stay the same. Negative 375, so where do we wind up in? We go all the way around, counterclockwise, we go all the way around, and we wind up in quadrant 4, because 375 is a little bit, so if you subtract that from 360, 375 minus 360 gives you roughly a negative 15 degrees. So we'll wind up in quadrant 4. So make sure you know the quadrants. All right, so the next one, determine two coterminal angles, one positive, one negative for each angle. So this is what we're doing. So this angle right here is not one of the angles. We want two angles based on this one going in the same direction like we did before. So the first thing, the best thing to do is to draw this. This is a positive angle. And so I have, so if this is 0 and 360, 90 degrees, 180 degrees, and then 270. I know this is going to wind up in quadrant 2. Okay, so that means I'm going to go here, and I go about a little bit over this 90 degree mark. So I'm going to go here. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and take off this. I don't really want to draw the direction arrow. You don't have to. And the reason I want to take this off is I don't want to get confused with my graphs. So let me redraw these. You can if you want to, but I just don't want you confused about what the other two angles are going to be. Okay, so I need two angles in both a positive and a negative of this one. So the first one to do is I'm going to do a positive one. Okay, so I'm going to start here. They share, remember the definitions, they share initial and a terminal side. So it means I'm going to start here for both of them and I got in here for both of them. I can't start here and stop here. That's the actual angle. I need another one. So I'm going to go here, go all the way around, and then stop. Okay, so I went all the way around 1. Okay, and so I added, and then complete circle, and then I went to that angle. So my positive angle is 460 degrees. That's the green one. Let's do the other way. So now I need a negative one. Okay, so I'm going to start the same side, terminal angle and initial angle. So here's my initial angle, and I'm going to wind up here on the terminal angle. So if I go all the way around, I'm in this, and I wind up here, that's going to be a negative 260. So let's figure out how we did this. Okay, so if we think about it, I have my initial one. I had 100. I started with this initial one. I started here, went to the 100 degrees, and had to go all the way around. So I took the angle and I added 360 degrees to get this. But for the second one, I had to know what I ended up with. So I started here, wound up right there. So what is that exactly? Well, that's 100 minus 360 degrees, which gives me my negative 270. Okay, so those are your two coterminal angles. Okay, so let's do this next one. 10 degrees. 10 degrees. on 10 degrees. Again, labeling. Right now, I'm not really labeling the angles. Oops. I just want to make sure. So 10 degrees is going to be in this quadrant. It's roughly, it's a little too large, but I need to give space to it. Initial side and terminal side. Okay, there's my 10-degree angle. I need two of them. So my first one, I'm going to start here. I can't stop at this one, so I'm going to go all the way around. I'm going to wind up right there. Okay. I always try to make it show that I went around this axis. There we go. So that's 10 degrees plus the 360 degrees, which gives me 370 degrees. Okay, the next way, we're going to go the opposite way. So we are going to start at the terminal side and end all the way right here. Well, that's going to be 10 degrees, and we're going to have to take out the 360 amount. That's too much. And we're going to wind up with negative 350. These two are your coterminal angles. All right, I'm going to stop you do the next one, and I'll stop the video and come back and see how you did. Okay, so here should be your two answers. I drew my graph, went all around, so I got 400 degrees and negative 320. So again, two terminal angles, positive and negative. Just go on to the next page.